So we continue inshallah explaining the title of the book of Imam Muslim rahimahullah, Sahih Muslim, which we said the proper name or the complete name that the author put down himself was al-Musnad al-Sahih al-Mukhtasar min al-Sunani bi naqli al-adli an al-adli an Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we mentioned some points regarding the first word in this title, al-Musnad. Now we will speak about the second word in this title, which is as-Sahih, al-Musnad as-Sahih. And we mentioned when we were explaining this word, when we talked about Sahih al-Bukhari, that Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim have made it a condition upon themselves to not to enter any hadith in their books except that it is Sahih. And we mentioned that the 5 conditions of the Sahih hadith. And we mentioned the benefit by way of example of Imam Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri rahimahullah. And so one of the brothers asked me regarding it right now. So this is not something that we have invented from ourselves. This is something that the scholars have mentioned. So from the books that have serviced and served Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, the Sahihain, and also the Kutub al-Sitta, the 6 books of hadith that we could not mention in this long list that we had. We mentioned some books like the Shuruh, like the Mukhtasarat, like the books related to the narrators of these books. From the books is the books that spoke about the methodology and the conditions of these books of hadith, like we are doing right now, but in extreme summarized format, very basic stuff. But if someone wants to research more and read upon the methodology of the scholars of hadith, especially the 6 scholars of hadith in the 6 books, then he should refer back to these books. From these books, from the most well known of them is the book Shurut al-A'imma al-Khamsa. Shurut al-A'imma al-Khamsa, as we can see from the title itself, conditions of the 5 scholars of hadith. And this is a book by Imam al-Hazimi rahimahullah, Imam al-Hazimi rahimahullah, in which he has talked about the condition or the methodology of the 5 books of hadith, leaving off Sunan Ibn Majah. Leaving off Sunan Ibn Majah. And I want to ask you, in way of benefit, why would he leave off Sunan Ibn Majah?
Some people consider it not to be part of the authentic books.
Ahsantum. Sunan Ibn Majah was not added to the 6 books of hadith except at a later date. The scholars always had a terminology, al-Kutub al-Khamsa, the 5 books of hadith, from past times since these 5 books have been compiled. Then, after several centuries, after the passing away of these scholars, came the terminology of the 6 books of hadith. And the scholars differed amongst themselves, the scholars of hadith, as to which should be the 6th book of hadith from amongst these 6 books. So there are 3, not just opinions, rather this was implemented by the scholars of hadith. So there are 3 positions regarding the 6th book. One position says that the 6th book is Muwatta Malik, Muwatta of Imam Malik, not Sunan Ibn Majah. Muwatta Malik. And this is not just the position they had, rather they are scholars who authored books based on this position. So as we said, that there are books that have serviced the Sahihain or the Kutub al-Sitta, their narrators, in explanation of them, in summarization of them, in talking about their atraf, etc. So from the books are those books that talked about the linguistic aspects found in this book. Linguistic issues related to the text of the hadith found in the 6 books. So from the most famous of them is which book? An-Nihaya. النهاية في غريب الحديث of Imam Ibn al-Asir. Imam Ibn al-Asir, he has a great book, النهاية في غريب الحديث, in which he talked about or explained the gharib words in the ahadith of these 6 books. This is also a science of hadith, and the ulama have written several books on the gharib words found in ahadith. And what is a gharib word? I guess there are some people from the Indo-Pak subcontinent with us, they might think it's the poor word. Gharib is something that is unknown. Al-ghurba, al-ghuraba, something that is unknown. So there are words in a hadith that are repetitive, that are used constantly. Min, ala, etc., etc. But there are words in a hadith that are very rare, that are not used except rarely. And their meaning upon most students of knowledge is not apparent. They could not know the meaning of these words. So they collected these words and they arranged them in alphabetical order, and they wrote the meanings of these words. It's like a dictionary specific to these difficult and unknown words. So it is like a book of sharh, explanation, but they only focus on the gharib words found in this ahadith. They don't explain the whole ahadith. So from the most famous of these books is the book of An-Nihaya fi Gharib al-Hadith. It is a book in which the gharib, unknown words of the ahadith that are found in the 6 books of hadith have been explained. The point of mentioning this is that the 6th book in this book is which book? Muwatta Malik. Muwatta Malik. So if one was to refer to a nihaya, if he has a hadith in Sunan Ibn Majah, for example, and there are some words he doesn't understand, and he says, let me refer to a nihaya because it explains the unknown words found in Kutub Sitta, he will not find the hadith. So this is why a student of knowledge should know the methodology of the scholars in these books, so that he knows where to look, what to look for and what not to look for. Understood? So one position was that Muwatta Malik is the 6th book of hadith. One position was that Musnad al-Darimi is the 6th book of hadith. Musnad, Sunan al-Darimi is the 6th book of hadith. And the third position, which is the most well-known and the majority position, which is that Sunan Ibn Majah is the 6th book of hadith. And this is the well-known and the position of the majority of the scholars, and until today, this is what the Muslims follow and act upon in the scholars of Islam, that the 6 books of hadith mean Sunan, along with them is Sunan Ibn Majah, not Muwatta and not Ad-Darimi. And as I said, Tahdhib al-Kamal of Imam Mizzi, where he mentioned the narratives of the 6 books, Tuhfatul Ashraf of Imam Mizzi, where he mentioned the atraf of the 6 books. All of these books, the 6th book is Sunan Ibn Majah. Sunan Ibn Majah. And this is what the scholars have continued for generations and generations until our times. And there's a reason why Sunan Ibn Majah was given precedence over the other books. I mean, the books of hadith are several.
Doesn't that depend on the land? Because in West Africa, the Muwatta of Imam Malik.
No doubt, the Muwatta has a high position. There's no doubt. But even the scholars of hadith from Al-Maghrib, after the 7th, 8th century, most of their books you will see the Kutub al-Sitta including Sunan Ibn Majah. Most of them including Sunan Ibn Majah. You're right that before them, just like in the eastern countries, Ibn al-Asir is al-Jazari from Jazira. He's not from the Maghrib. And he has included Muwatta from the 6 books. So from the Maghribi countries you find Qadi Iyad. Qadi Iyad, he has written several books in Gharib in which he has included Muwatta from the 6th book. But this was something general to all the scholars of hadith. But as I said, from the 7th, 8th century, especially after Imam al-Hafiz al-Mizzi, once he wrote those 2 great encyclopedias in the science of hadith, Tuhfatul Ashraf and Tahdhib al-Kamal, the 6 books of hadith have generally meant to mean including Sunan Ibn Majah. And there's a reason why the scholars of hadith gave precedence to Sunan Ibn Majah upon the other books of hadith and upon Muwatta and Sunan Ad-Darimi. Anyone know this reason? No. The reason is that it contains a lot of zawaid. Zawaid. This is also a science from the science of hadith, kutub al-zawaid, in which the scholars mention the hadith that a specific book has that are not present in another book. So mathalan, they will come to Sunan Abi Dawud and mention is zawaid on Sahihain, on Bukhari and Muslim. So there are hadiths in Sunan Abi Dawud that are present in Bukhari and in Muslim. But there are hadiths in Sunan Abi Dawud that are not present in Bukhari and in Muslim. So they would join or collect this hadith separately. This is called zawaid. And this is a way that is well known today, especially in memorizing the sunnah. People ask always, how can we memorize the sunnah? Or someone wants to memorize the 6 books of hadith. How is that possible? How can one do it? So this is the way of memorizing the sunnah and the 6 books of hadith in our times, that many students of knowledge they implement and they follow, which is that they first memorize Sahih al-Bukhari, which is of course the summarization of it, the tajreed al-sarih, without the isnad and without the repetitive ahadith, without the muallaqat, without the mawqufat, just the marfu, muttasil, non-repetitive ahadith, without the isnad, just the names of the sahaba. And
Would that be the mukhtasar?
yeah, of Zabidi, of Imam al-Zabidi rahimahullah. And there's many scholars in our times that have written mukhtasar of Sahih Bukhari themselves. From them Shaykh Sa'ad al-Shithri, Hafidhahullah, and other than them. Many scholars have combined or authored a summary of Sahih al-Bukhari based on their specific methodology. As we said, Imam Bukhari will mention a hadith in several places. For example, the first hadith that he mentioned, innamal a'malu bin-niyat. This hadith he has narrated in 7 places in Sahih al-Bukhari. In 7 places. In different chapters and different books. So the scholars have a specific methodology. One of them, yani if you were to delete 6 positions of this hadith or places, where would you leave it? Would you leave it in the first one, or the second one, or the third one? So they differ amongst themselves based on their viewpoint. Also there's differences in words. As we said, Imam Bukhari does not repeat a hadith except there's faida, there's benefit. So the isnad, okay, we have gotten rid of it. We just mentioned the sahabi in the summarized, so there's no isnad. But the matan, there are words, addition, subtraction. So how do they combine these words in one place? So they have different methodologies. So the point is, the students of knowledge memorize the ahadith of Bukhari. There are non-repetitive, the muttasil marfu. Then the ahadith, the zawaid of Muslim are on al-Bukhari. Those ahadith that Imam Bukhari has narrated that are not present in Sahih Muslim. Because a lot of ahadith that you say muttafaq alayh, muttafaqun alayh. You have heard this terminology, muttafaqun alayh. What does that mean? That ittafaqa ala ikhraji al-Bukhari wa Muslim. That Bukhari and Muslim, both of them have narrated this hadith in this Sahih. So these ahadith are, the hadith that are muttafaq alayh, that are in Sahih Muslim are also present in Bukhari. So they leave this ahadith. They only take the hadith that are not present in Bukhari. They are very much few in number. They memorize that. Then they memorize Zawaid, Sunan Abi Dawud upon Muslim. Those ahadith of Sunan Abi Dawud that are not present in Muslim. Then they memorize Zawaid, Tirmidhi ala Abi Dawud. Then Zawaid, Nasai ala at-Tirmidhi. Zawaid Ibn Majah ala an-Nasai. Yani by the end you will have like 200, 300 ahadith to memorize in Sunan Ibn Majah. And by this they have memorized the mutun of the 6 books of hadith.
Makes sense.
Now,
But when we say it's been repeated 7 times, like innamal a'malu
Yeah.
bin-niyyat, each time is a different isnad.
it might be a different isnad, it might be different words, like he would say in one narration, the first one, innamal a'malu bin-niyat. In the other, he might say, innamal amalu bin-niyyah. And etc, etc. So as we said, Sunan Ibn Majah, after 7th or 8th century, it was considered from the 6 books of hadith. And the reason was the a zawaid that it contains in addition on top of the remaining 5 books. It has a lot of zawaid that are not present in the 5 books. As far as Muwatta, everyone knows, this is a well-known topic, that the scholars mention, the scholars of hadith, that Muwatta in its totality almost is present in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. The Muwatta is a small book. And the scholars say most of the hadith in Muwatta that Imam Malik narrated, they are present in Bukhari and Muslim. Many of the hadith that you find in Bukhari and Muslim in which isnad is Malik, you will find that they are present in Muwatta. So Muwatta has basically, all of it has come in Bukhari and Muslim. So there's no zawaid in it except very few. And Darimi, same thing. So that's why they selected Sunan Ibn Majah to be from the 6th book of hadith. So Hazimi, returning back to our topic, he was before this time, so he only authored on the 5 books of hadith without Ibn Majah. And he talked about the shurut of the conditions of the authors of these books. And he is the one who mentioned this example of Imam Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, rahimahullah, to explain why a book is held higher in authenticity than the other book. So he is the one who mentioned that Imam Zuhri has 4 tabaqat, 4 levels of his students. Imam Bukhari, he narrates the hadith of the first tabaqa. Imam Muslim, most of his hadiths are from the second tabaqa. And we will learn inshallah Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, they are from the 3rd and the 4th tabaqa. We will learn that inshallah. So this was, someone asked me regarding it. So we come back to the second word in the title, as-Sahih. And we talked about as-Sahih and the 5 conditions of the Sahih hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. But we'll mention an additional benefit here, which is that the same topic that we just mentioned, as we said, Imam Bukhari, he narrates on the first tabaqa of the narrators of hadith. For example, Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, he will narrate on the first tabaqa, first level, which is those who are memorizers of the hadith. They have extremely rare mistakes, but along with that they have an additional benefit, which is that they have lived with that shaykh for a long period of time, so they know his right hadith from his wrong hadith, his mistakes from his correctness. Imam Muslim, as Imam al-Hazimi has mentioned, rahimahullah, that most of his ahadith in Sahih Muslim are narrated on the second level, which without doubt they are thiqat, huffaz. They are narrators, that are memorizers, that have very rare mistakes. But the mulazama, they have not spent a long time with those narrators who they narrated hadith upon. So this is a reason that Sahih al-Bukhari is considered in a higher level of authenticity than Sahih Muslim. And both of them are authentic. All the hadith in it are authentic. No.
Maybe for later, but is it because Imam Muslim didn't travel as much as Imam Bukhari? Is that why?
No, this was his condition, that it is not necessary, as we said, this is an authentic hadith. The authentic hadith has these conditions, and these conditions are met in other books also. But Imam Bukhari, from his methodology, was he would strive hard and not to narrate except on the first tabaqa, which the highest level, which is extremely hard and rare. So this was something that he made it a condition upon himself.
It's all Sahih, but
this is his condition, and there's no problem in if someone sets a condition upon himself. This is a very important issue. Someone sets a condition, and he implements that condition, he cannot be held or blamed for it. There's something very important to know. Some people in their ignorance might say, why did Abu Dawud narrate weak ahadith? Did he not know these are weak ahadith? Why did Tirmidhi, Nasai, Ibn Majah, why do they have weak ahadith? Why would they leave weak ahadith in their books for the ummah? This is their condition. They have spoken about their condition, they have mentioned it, and they have mentioned the reasons for it. So once they have done that, if they are upon their condition, there's no one who can be held blameworthy. The blameworthy part comes, you set a condition and then you oppose it. This is blameworthy. If you set a condition and you oppose it, this is blameworthy, as is mentioned with the book of al-Mustadrak al-Sahihain of Imam al-Hakim. Imam al-Hakim, Abu Abdullah al-Hakim al-Nisaburi, he passed away in the year 405 after the Hijrah. He has a book, well-known book, al-Mustadrak al-Sahihain. It is considered from the books of as-Sihah, those books that have gathered authentic ahadith only. What is al-Mustadrak al-Sahihain? As we can see from the title, that he narrates a hadith in this book that he says that upon the condition of Bukhari and Muslim. That he says are upon the condition of Bukhari and Muslim. Meaning the narrators of these ahadith are the same narrators that are present in Bukhari, in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Okay, so this is a condition. This is from the title apparent, al-Mustadrak al-Sahihain. Gathering a hadith that is upon the condition of a Bukhari and Muslim. But even with that, a lot of scholars have spoken upon this book because he has opposed his condition in his book. There are several ahadith that are not upon the condition of Bukhari and Muslim. Several ahadith, he would say that they are upon the condition of Bukhari and Muslim, rahimahullah, and they are not from the narrators of Bukhari and Muslim. So this is what is. So, la shak, Imam Hakim was from the Kibar Huffaz, Muhaddithin. And he has a book on the narrators of hadith that sadly did not reach us also. And it was one of the greatest books authored on the narrators of hadith. Anyone know this book? Tarikh Nisabur. He was from Nisabur, the same city of Imam Muslim in Khurasan. He has a book on the narrators of hadith in this great area of Nisabur that was of several volumes, and several scholars benefited from it and mentioned that Imam Hakim said this in this book. But this book sadly has not reached us. And some people say that it is with those people in Iran and they have hidden it. Allahu alam to the reality. So this is regarding as-Sahih. Then we come to the third word, which is al-Mukhtasar. We said al-Musnad, as-Sahih, al-Mukhtasar. And as we said, this also gives proof, just like Imam Bukhari, that Imam Muslim did not wish to compile and gather all the Sahih hadith, and he did not mention in his book all the Sahih hadith that he knew. He only mentioned a select amount of hadith based on his specific condition. And we say here that the number of ahadith in Sahih Muslim are 3,033. 3,033 ahadith. We mentioned that the number of ahadith in al-Bukhari without repetition is how many? 2,602. And Imam Muslim has 3,033. So he is much more than Bukhari in number. Without doubt, this is also from the distinguishing aspects of Sahih Muslim, that it is greater in number than Sahih al-Bukhari. The fourth word is as-Sunan. Al-Musnad, as-Sahih, al-Mukhtasar, min as-Sunan. We notice here that he did not mention the word al-Jami'. Did he mention the word al-Jami'? Like Imam Bukhari mentioned. He mentioned these three words and also al-Jami'. Imam Muslim did not mention the word al-Jami'. So is his book from the Jawami'? Does it contain all types of ahadith, or does it just contain a hadith of ahkam, of fiqh, of the acts of worship? It has all the ahadith. It has all types of ahadith. So it is a book from the books of al-Jawami'. It is Jami'. But instead of saying Jami', he says this, min as-Sunan. Min as-Sunan. Meaning that I will mention in this book the Musnad, Muttasil, Marfu, Sahih, ahadith that are from the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, as we know, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is all comprehensive. It contains all types of chapters and relates to all facets of life. So this is a word that he used instead of the word al-Jami'. So this is what the scholars have mentioned, that min as-Sunan means that he will mention all types of ahadith. He will just not mention a hadith of al-Ahkam or al-Fiqh. He will mention all types of ahadith. So we find in Sahih Muslim, in addition to the book Ahadith of Al-Ahkam, the books of Al-Ahkam, we find book of Fadail al-Sahaba, the virtues of the companions. We find books of at-Tafsir. We find the book of at-Tafsir, which by the way is the smallest book from the books of Sahih Muslim. Tafsir is the smallest book from the books of Sahih Muslim, and it is the last book by which he finished his book as-Sahih, at-Tafsir. After that we have these words from Imam Muslim in the title, بِنَقْلِ الْعَدْلِ عَنِ الْعَدْلِ بِنَقْلِ الْعَدْلِ عَنِ الْعَدْلِ. Yani these sunan and these ahadith that I mentioned in this book, they are narrated by a adl on the authority of an adl. And we said adl means trustworthiness in the religion. Trustworthiness in the religion. And someone asked me regarding the Sahaba, when we say that kulluhum udul, they're all trustworthy. Does this also include hifz? That they're dabit, that they're memorizers? As we said, every narrator has to have two conditions. There's no third condition. If they fulfill these two conditions, they are from the thiqat, those ahadith who are accepted. And if any of these two conditions are not fulfilled, they are from the da'if ruwat. Their hadith is not accepted, rejected. So here he says, بِنَقَلَ الْعَدَلْ عَنِ الْعَدَلْ. Just adl, there's no dabit. There's no hifz mentioned. Adala. That trustworthy in his religion, narrates a trustworthy in his religion. So does he mean that that is enough even if he's not a memorizer of hadith, he makes a lot of mistakes? No. As we answered to the brother, this is something the ulama of hadith used a lot, that adl meant to them something that includes dabt, something that includes memorization. So this is what he means, بِنَقْلَ الْعَدَلْ عَنِ الْعَدَلْ, yani the one who has combined both trustworthiness in his religion and hifz and memorization. So this is also a repetition of what we just mentioned. Now, then lastly we will mention some of the books that the ulama have written around Sahih Muslim. So from them are the books of that have explained Sahih Muslim. And we mentioned that because most of the people are in need of these kind of books, the books that explain this ahadith. As far as the books that talk about their atraf or their narrators or their mustakhrajat or mustadrakat, etc., these are specialized books that only a specialized student of hadith can benefit from. But shuruh, the books that explain these ahadith, are needed by everybody. So from the oldest explanation of Sahih Muslim is a book called Al-Mu'lim. Al-Mu'lim. Al-Mu'lim bi Fawaid Muslim. Al-Mu'lim bi Fawaid Muslim of Imam Al-Maziri. Imam Al-Maziri. And he passed away in the year 536 after the Hijrah. 536. This is the oldest known explanation of Sahih Muslim which is published. After him came Imam Al-Qadi Iyad, and he wrote a book called Ikmal Al-Mu'lim, completing the book Al-Mu'lim. Because Imam Al-Maziri, in his book, he does not explain every single hadith. Fathul Bari of Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Sahih Bukhari, he explains every single hadith. But Imam Al-Maziri, he explained some ahadith and left off some ahadith. So Imam Qadi Iyad came after him and wrote this book Ikmal Al-Mu'lim, by which he explained the ahadith that Imam Mazari did not explain. So these two books complete one another, Al-Mu'lim and Ikmal Al-Mu'lim. And from the well-known, we'll only mention this last book, from the well-known books that have explained Sahih Muslim that most students of knowledge know, is the Sharh of Imam Al-Nawawi. The Sharh of Imam Nawawi, which name is Al-Minhaj. Al-Minhaj fi Sharh Sahih Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj. Al-Minhaj fi Sharh Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, who passed away in the year 676, and it is published in 9 volumes. And with this we have finished talking about Sahih Muslim in severe summarization. If there are any questions, then you can go ahead. No.
Sadiq Hassan Khan has an explanation too?
No. Imam al-Nawab Siddiq Hassan Khan al-Qannauji al-Bukhari, from the great Ahle-Hadith scholars of India, he has explanation, but it is not explanation on Sahih Muslim itself. It is explanation on the Mukhtasar of Sahih Muslim. Sahih Muslim also has summarizations, just like Imam Sahih Bukhari has summarizations. So from the scholars who summarized Sahih Muslim is Imam al-Qurtubi. Imam al-Qurtubi. And this is not the same Qurtubi that is the scholar of tafsir. Many students of knowledge get mixed up. This is Abu al-Abbas al-Qurtubi. The other is Abu Abdullah al-Qurtubi. He is the scholar of tafsir who wrote the tafsir al-Qurtubi. This is another scholar, Abu al-Abbas al-Qurtubi. He summarized Sahih Muslim. From the most famous summarization of Sahih Muslim, and it is just like the Tajrid al-Sari of al-Zabidi, and it is the most well-known summarization today that the students of knowledge memorize and they use, which is the summary of Imam al-Mundhiri. Imam al-Mundhiri, the same Imam al-Mundhiri who wrote the well-known book at-Targhib wa-Tarhib. At-Targhib wa-Tarhib. So he has summarized Sahih Muslim. So Nawab Siddiq Hassan Khan has explained the summary of Imam al-Mundhiri. The summary of Imam al-Mundhiri. No.
Why do we find translations of these summaries like Fathul Bari, English translations?
Why?
Why don't we find English translations easily available of the summaries? Like Fathul Bari, there's no translation.
We're waiting for you to translate that shit.
I mean, this is a very delicate topic. As we can see, these books contain various sciences of hadith and various detailed matters of sciences of hadith. And the one who is not a student of knowledge or well versed in these matters is bound to make mistakes and errors. So the explanations of these books have contained these matters in detail that is not for everyone. The layman, the general Muslim, he cannot benefit from these matters that are detailed, that are discussed in detail in these books. So a summary should be written of these books that is in line with the intellectual capacity of the layman Muslims. That benefits them and lets them know what they need, and leaves off that which they are not in need of. Leaves off that issues that they will not benefit from. So this is what is befitting. Now,
So Sheikh, average layman, should they be studying like Muslim Bukhari for themselves, or should they always study with the Sheikh?
I mean, reading the books of hadith it in itself is a barakah. And the scholars of hadith have mentioned that the Ahlul-Hadith and the students of hadith are the closest of the people to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on the day of resurrection, because they are the ones who send the most peace and blessings upon him. So reading these books, reading the words of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, sending praise and peace and blessings upon him is something virtuous without a doubt. And it's a blessing without a doubt. But the problem arises when someone tries to derive rulings from this hadith based on his intellect, and he's not well versed or has not reached that level. So this will lead a person to fall into mistakes and errors, to derive rulings from himself based on what he has understood from those hadith. So this is something that is problematic. But reading a hadith and reading it within circles, this is something that is a virtuous action. No.
Is there any set in Urdu language as well?
Yeah, I mean Urdu, the Urdu language over the last 2 centuries, we can say without a doubt that no language after Arabic has as much Islamic literature than Urdu. Urdu language has the most Islamic literature after the Arabic language. And this is because Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, as we said, Iran or Faris, Khurasan was a place from the centers of the Ahlul Hadith and the scholars of Hadith. And today we see what it has become. So Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala raises a people and removes a people and brings other than them to preserve His religion. So for the last 2-3 centuries, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala raised a people in India who preserved this science of Hadith and who were well known for the science of Hadith when it had finished in almost all of the world. As the scholars have themselves said, that if it wasn't for the scholars of India, this science of Hadith would not have reached us today. So they preserved this science and they learned it and they taught it and they served these books. They have written several books in these fields in their language of Urdu, along with Arabic and along with the Persian Farsi language that was present in a specific time in those countries. So from the shuruhat of Sahih al-Bukhari in the Urdu language, first of all, many of the scholars of India, Pakistan, they taught these books to the students verbally. And India, Pakistan is not like the Western countries where there are these blessings that are abundant. So they used to teach these books in old buildings, in madrasas, in madaris, in masajid, and only the students who benefit from them, they carried this knowledge forward. After the advent of technology and recordings and some of them, their explanations and their service of this book got recorded in the later lives. So some of them has been published, like the Sharaf al-Imam al-Hafidh Muhammad al-Ghundalwi rahimahullah, who was from the great Ahle-Hadith scholars of Pakistan, who was from one of the first 2 teachers in Jamia Islamiyya Medina. When Jamia Islamiyya Medina was established 60 or more years ago, Al-Allama Abdul Aziz ibn Baz rahimahullah, who was the vice chancellor of the university, he sent a team of scholars to Pakistan to appoint 2 scholars to teach in this newly established University of Islamic University of Medina, to take interviews and to test and to bring 2 scholars. From them was Allama Muhammad al-Ghundalwi rahimahullah, who came to Medina. He taught in the Islamic University in its very inception. And Al-Allama al-Albani was also invited from Damascus, and he also taught in the Jamia Islamiyya for a few years, and they both taught at the same time. And there's something well known narrated that Shaykh al-Imam al-Albani rahimahullah, he said that I have not seen a scholar greater in the science of hadith than Al-Allama Muhammad al-Ghundalwi rahimahullah. So he taught hadith, and his explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari in Urdu has been published, and there are other books also in Urdu that have been published in explanation of these books. Now,
this question has 2 small parts to it. So the first one being, like when we say all the authentic hadiths, like all the sunnah, would be around approximately 4,000. But then we have Sheikh, I don't want to get his name.
Diya ar-Rahman al-Azam.
16,000 authentic
No.
hadiths, right? So that brings me to the main question of, I was once asked this a few years back, when they say authentic, and then you tell them the criteria, for example, 5 pieces of criteria, they say, according to whom, because some would be more scrutinizing of the criteria, some would put more weight on, let's say, the trustworthiness, or would be more strict about it, whereas some would be more lenient. Or is there one objective criteria, or is there a spectrum, is flexibility there?
So as we said, based on who or according to whom? According to the scholars of hadith. As we said, the conditions of deeming a hadith to be authentic or accepting it or rejecting it are unified. They are united upon. All the scholars of hadith accept this. There is no difference amongst them. That a hadith has to have these 5 conditions to be deemed acceptable. There is no difference amongst them. So the basic answer is according to whom? According to the scholars of this science of hadith. Now, as we said, the difference comes in the implementation. So a scholar of hadith can say that, can view that the narrator in this chain, he does not reach, we said adl dabit, he does not reach the highest level of hifz. So he can say he's saduq, so the hadith becomes hasan. And another scholar, he can view that this narrator is in the top level of hifz, so he is thiqa and the hadith becomes sahih. So the implementation, the scholars, as you mentioned, they can differ upon. And this is like any other science from the sciences of Islam. This is like any of the science from the sciences of Islam, where there are differences among the scholars based on their wijhat nazar and their viewpoints and their ijtihadat. And kullun ma'jur, every mujtahid has a reward. So this is not something that is so problematic that the people try to create doubts about. As we said, the usul of the sunnah, the foundation of the sunnah, it is preserved, it is authentic. Now this hadith, as we said, the same hadith has been narrated, for example, by 2 sahabi. So these scholars who have differed amongst themselves, they can view the hadith to be authentic, all of them, from one of the sahaba. But the second sahaba, one of them has said it is da'if, one of them said it is sahih. But have we lost anything from the text or the matan of this hadith? We have lost nothing from the text or the matan of this hadith. As long as the hadith has been established on a sahabi, so if the scholars differed in this chain of narration on another sahabi, and even if they said this is da'if, but that hadith has been established by the other sahabi who has narrated it with authentic chain. So these kind of issues are not something that cause that much problems. If a person who truly studies the science, it is not something that problematic that the people make it to seem.
So Sheikh, there are basically fundamentals to doing takhrij, but then there is room for ijtihad.
Yeah, of course. This is ilm al-ala. The science of hadith, it is a science that was used to serve the sunnah. So there's ijtihad, there are aspects of ijtihad in it, like in other sciences. Ulum al-Quran has aspects of ijtihad. For example, the waqf and ibtida in ulum al-Quran. I don't know if anyone is well versed in ulum al-Quran. This is not our speciality, but there's a science in ulum al-Quran that is called al-waqf wal-ibtida, where to stop and where to start in the ayat. So the alamat that you see in the mushaf, Jim, Qaf, Sil, Saad, this is from ijtihad of the scholars. And the scholars have differed in this. If someone reads this science, he will find that there is difference amongst the scholars. But is that such a big topic that it is something that the Quran can be questioned? So just like the Sunnah, there is ijtihad in all sciences of the fiqh. Fiqh is filled with ijtihadat of the ulama. Fiqh is filled with ijtihadat of the ulama. So this science of hadith has aspects of ijtihad without a doubt. When you rule upon a narrator of hadith, you have your ijtihad in it. You look at the statements of the scholars on this narrator. Some of them said he's thiqa, some of them said he's da'if. So I might view him to be thiqa based on the principles of this science. And you might view him to be da'if based on the principles of this science. And both are accepted because you follow the principles that the ulama have put down for this science. I mean, I can't go into more detail because it will be going into
I was going to ask
details that a person who has not studied this science will not benefit from. But you will find narrators that the scholars have severely differed in. Is he thiqa? Is he da'if? You will find statements from all the spectrum, from thiqa until da'if. But the scholars have specific principles. You give precedence to the statement of the mu'tadil imam, the one who is known that he does not make jarah, disparagement on a narrator based on one or two mistakes. And you do not take the position or the statement of a mutasahil imam, who is lenient, who even the majhulin, he says they are acceptable. So there are conditions, and after fulfilling these conditions, if you and I differ, there's no problem in that. This is why you find Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, he has ahkam. Other scholars in our time, they have other ahkam, but they all follow this science, the principles of this science. The problem arises when someone follows his desires. So there are people you will find today that will follow their desires and present it as if this is the science of hadith.
My sheikh said this.
No, they will, for example, if a hadith is against their madhab, if a hadith is against their school of thought, and they can't find anything in the science of hadith to reject this hadith, so they'll make principles that none of the scholars of hadith have mentioned. So they'll say the rawi, the sahabi for example, is ghair faqih, as the brother mentioned some of them. Abu Huraira's hadith radiallahu anhu were refuted because they said that he's ghair faqih.
Which is an insult.
Which is not even a principle.
Of course not. Someone will say that this hadith is imma mansukh or muawwal. If a hadith, they cannot reject it based on the science of hadith, they will say that this hadith is mansukh. Who said it's mansukh? None of the scholars have, before you have said this is mansukh. This is something that is negated or, abrogated. Or they will say it's muawwal. We have to make ta'wil of it, a false interpretation. Which of the scholars of hadith have done this? So the problem comes in following hawa and desires. But if someone follows the science of hadith, there's ijtihad in it and there's no problem you and me differ, as long as we follow the principles of the science. No.
Which can go in two different
Yeah, no problem.
that are in line with the sunnah.
Yeah, there's no problem in that. As I said, this is present and it will remain present. No.
Is it correct to say that these people who try to follow their desires in order to incline with their madhab, are those the ones who open the doors for like inkar of hadith and the sunnah?
I mean, it led to people arriving who outrightly rejected the authority of the sunnah. It led and it gave strength and aided the people who outrightly rejected the authority of the sunnah. There's no doubt. These tawilat, rejection of ahadith based on intellect, based on personal desires, no doubt it strengthened the people who went on and outright rejected the sunnah. As we see in India and Pakistan, that the people who are known as munkiri hadith, munkirin as-sunnah, those who rejected the authority of the sunnah, most of them have come from these groups. And it led them in the end to reject the sunnah in its totality. Now.
Sorry, I'm going to ask 2-3 questions. So, we know that if someone refuses one verse of the Quran, that's like refusing the entire Quran, right? And for sure that's, bound to the hellfire. And is that the case for someone saying, I'm not going to accept this hadith? If it is authentic hadith, and someone saying, I'm not going to accept it, does that constitute the same meaning, that he's refusing the entire religion?
There's detail involved in this. The issue is the issue of juhud, to reject that this ayah, for example, is part of the Quran. That this ayah is part of the Quran. Or authentic hadith, to reject that it is part of the Sunnah or the Hadith, it is not from revelation to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As far as someone who says that I will not act upon it, or he makes ta'wil of it, or if he says he's nasikh, mansukh, etc., then the takfir cannot be made of him. He has ta'wil that he should be corrected, but takfir, it has specific conditions. It is not as easy as some people delve into it, to deeming a Muslim to be a non-Muslim outside the fold of Islam. It has very strict conditions. And this is left for the major scholars, and it is not for some small students of knowledge like us to give answers in these kind of detailed topics. But as I said, it goes back to the detail and the reason that the person has rejected this. If he has ta'wil, he says this is against my madhab, this is something I don't understand, he makes false interpretation of it, then takfir cannot be made of him. But if he has juhud, he outright rejects this ayah, then this is another matter. Now.
So you mentioned that it's important to see the ruling of the hadith, right?
No.
But normally, we take a message, like a WhatsApp message, hadith come, and we're just gonna spread it to the different group.
No.
And then there is a dua of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you hear
Naddarallahu imran samiyam.
So so the words in Urdu are the fresh would be the face of the right.
Ma'ruf.
So like, what's the conclusion? Like you mentioned, one should also look at the ruling of that hadith, and other is the dua of Prophet Muhammad.
No, but
so should I be spreading the hadith?
The dua, if you this is a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Naddarallahu imran sami'a minni hadithan aw maqalati فحفظها ووعاها وبلغها لمن لم يسمع. So this has specific conditions in the same hadith, in the same dua, that may Allah brighten the face of the one who hears my hadith. And he didn't just say وبلغها and spreads it. He said فحفظها, and he memorizes it and properly understands it and spreads it after that. So this memorization, hifz, wa'i and hifz, memorizing and understanding, this entails that a person knows the ruling of this hadith. A person knows the ruling of this hadith, understands it, then he spreads it. If it is not authentic hadith, he does not spread it. I mean, this is from the basics of this science. As we have mentioned, that there are books in which their authors have just narrated authentic hadith. You can take a hadith of Bukhari and Muslim and spread it without any question. But there are books in which the author himself has not made it a condition to just narrate authentic hadith, but he says that I have placed in my book non-authentic hadith for various reasons that he mentioned. So how can someone take this hadith and narrate them or spread them without explaining to the people, making it apparent if this is authentic or non-authentic? Now. Intahayna? We have finished for today? Or I guess we can finish now. So we continue tomorrow, inshallah. I mean, we just got through 2 books, Allah al-Musta'an, and we have 4 books left. But inshallah, I hope that what was said was benefit. And I ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala to bless us with understanding in this religion, and to forgive us our mistakes, وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.